So first on the agenda, we have our approval of minutes from our last meeting, which is June 12th. If anyone has any updates to those or changes.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Any opposed or abstaining? Corporate abstaining?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And the staff, is there any updates?
I have a few that I'll just add to the items from staff.
So on to general business. We welcome all of our new members returning. And welcome everyone.
Yeah. So I thought we'd just take a few minutes, since we have quite a few new members, to go around and give folks an opportunity to introduce themselves and share anything that you'd like to share. That goes for new members and old members as well, so we can all just get to know each other a little bit better. I would say our summer months tend to be a little later on the agenda anyway, because vacations and things get pushed around, so we've got time today. So if there's anyone, I'll get started. I think I know everyone in some capacity, but I'm Lisa Knobloch. I'm the sustainability manager with the city. I've been here for about 8.5 years, and we are housed in the relatively newly created Department of Strategic Integration, which is a department that was formed specifically to support the organization to integrate citywide council priorities and goals. Most of the department does internal support through GIS and data analytics and rate analyses and that sort of stuff, but there's a few folks like us that also look both internal and external around sustainability and things like that. So, anyone else wants to jump in, or we can go around the circle?
Francie Jaffe Sheever, I'm an internal sustainability coordinator. I've been at the city for just over 6 years and had a couple of different positions within the sustainability office. And then within my most recent position, which focuses on supporting staff in applying sustainability to their work for the past just over 2 years.
So I'm Michelle. I'm the chair now. It's been like 2 months now. And just a quick overview. Yeah, the last 6 years I've been an environmental and social justice nonprofit, doing grant making for them. So that's my focus, and been a sustainability consultant before. I've been happy to be part of this board and the great things that they do.
I'm Ralph Grosswald. I've been a board member on this board for 2 years. I've been living out west for about 10 years, but prior to that I was in North Carolina, where I was the founder of Partnership for Watauga's Future, which was Watauga County, North Carolina Environmental Group. Was very active there. Students local legislation, fighting asphalt plants in neighborhoods since there was no zoning. Wrote the proposal, actually had the opportunity to meet one of the candidates for the River Keepers project that helped to preserve a river in Tennessee and North Carolina, and wanted to find a way to support the community here. And when an opportunity came to join this board, I joined it a couple of years ago. It's a great group of people, and we welcome new members. Excited to have you.
I'm Daniel Leonard. I've been on the board for 10 minutes. My day job, I work for the University of Colorado Boulder in their research office. Specifically, I support researchers in bringing their technologies into practical applications in the market and throughout the world. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I was born and raised in Colorado, moved to Longmont 4 years ago, and I'm really excited to dive in.
I'm Mary Ann. I have a long background in sustainability. I founded a sustainable business network in Arizona led a Sustainable Cities Conference at Prescott College, where I was the marketing director for 6 years. And spent a lot of that time learning and writing about agroecology. When I was younger, I worked on farms and such, and my husband is a farmer. He's left his transition from his tech job to starting a farm-to-family food cooperative, and he just got the only grant in this region from the USDA, $100,000, to start a food hub. So I have a big focus on life-based approaches to sustainability. I've had meetings recently with the Boulder County Commissioner, Ashley Stoltzman, on pesticide issues. There's a big controversy going on there. The farmers are all up in arms about that. I belong to the Front Range Farmers Coalition with my husband, and very much focused on helping the city to green the codes so that transitions to life and nature-based approaches like passive solar can happen in every neighborhood. I don't see Trump walls. Eliminating pesticides, building a regional food plan and food sustainability plan, disturbing things coming out of the FDA about how they're not going to be maintaining our supply chains for us nationally anymore. We have to do that locally, which is part of why the food hub happened. And eliminating pesticides and starting as much local growing on every scrap of land we can, which we're calling a project I haven't yet started, but I will, called Greater Bug, the Greater Boulder Urban Gardens Project. So that's...
I'm focused. I've been in the board for 10 minutes as well. I'm an urban planner, architect. I have my own practice. I also teach as an adjunct in the University of Colorado, Denver. Even though I'm an urban planner, I have an environmental studies doctorate. I focus on regulations and adaptation. Just published a book about adaptation. It's all about localization of the assessment systems. I served as a commissioner for the Historic Preservation Commission and 2 years in planning and zoning as well. So, that's it.
Robert Davidson. This is my second term on the Sustainability Advisory Board, so thanks for having me back. I spent the last almost 20 years now working on building efficiency projects, so that's been my area of expertise. I'm really passionate, or particularly passionate about just energy use and efficiency type stuff.
I'm Ethan Green. I'm new here. Of course, I ran for mayor last year in Longmont, and ride a bicycle everywhere, ride the bus all the time, and I did a master's degree in environmental leadership at the University of Boulder years ago, and started the Culture Club there, won the Sustainability Leadership Award, Nuclear Justice Award during my time at Europa. And I've done a lot of work in the environmental field for almost 20 years. And from to Colorado, I was in New Mexico, but I worked with organic farms in New Mexico. And passionate about regenerative agriculture and climate action in general. We were learning about life farming solutions.
Just doing some introductions, so newer folks.
I'm Becky Doyle. I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Integration, which is a department that includes our sustainability practice as well as other strategic goals of the city, including data and analytics, greater use of GIS, project management, those kinds of things that help to make the city more efficient, collaborative, sustainable, hopefully. So thank you. Welcome and welcome back here to Southern.
And my name is Heather. I have been with the city for a little over 6 years. I'm an executive assistant in strategic integration. I support our assistant city manager for the utilities and his leadership team, as well as a lot of people in the department. So, and then I'm a recording secretary for this board and also the water board. So you'll see a lot of communications from me.
you have questions, Heather probably knows the answers more than I do, but you can always reach out to me and I might move in. So, I know Wayne introduced himself and he'll have a chance to talk a little bit later. Susan, do you want to?
Sure. Welcome to new folks and welcome back. I'm Susan Bartlett. I'm the Director of Energy Strategies and Solutions with Longmont Power and Communications, so we're your local municipally owned electric utility. And my team is largely responsible for customer engagement and distributed energy resources and a lot of the exciting things that are on our plate for the utility.
And we have our media partner over. Do you want to say hello and let people know what you're doing?
Hi, I'm Eric. I work for Longmont Public Media, and we record advisory boards, and we'll have this up on YouTube in a couple of days.
Thank you.
You will see yourself on YouTube.
You will see yourself.
He's like 5 years.
So hopefully, as you all will get to know, we are a very informal board. Some of the other boards you'll see tend to be more formal. I think we're a very vibrant and cordial bunch. So please feel free to chime in, make jokes, whatever you want to do, and holler if you have any questions. We do follow Robert's Rules of Order. I did send you all some kind of welcome materials to help orient you.
Robert's.
That Robert right there, so you get to make up the rules today. But please don't be intimidated by that. If there's ever questions around process or whatever, like Heather kind of jumped in earlier and we'll help make sure that we're following kind of those type things. But please feel free to have questions. So can I grab those mouse? Yes. So as an orientation to our new folks, but also a couple things, these are always good refreshers, I think, for existing folks too, is that I thought might be helpful in addition to the documents that I emailed you all. One of the things that is relatively new-ish anyway is the Longmont indicators page. And we've started to move away from having our very lengthy and substantive plans like our sustainability plan and Envision Longmont Climate Action Plan themselves as a PDF online. They're hard to navigate, and as we're moving towards requirements around ADA compliance and things like that, a lot of those didn't follow those ADA compliance rules. And we're trying to move those things into a space that also makes them more engaging and interactive and easy for people to access. And part of the purpose of Longmont Indicators was also to start to show how a lot of the plans that we have in place, so the Sustainability Plan, Climate Action Plan, Envision Longmont, the Beneficial Building Electrification Plan, and the Transportation Roadmap, also don't exist in isolation. So a lot of those things interact with one another. There's goals that we have that are supported by actions across those plans, and we're starting to try to show how those things are connected to one another. So one of the areas in which folks would sometimes come to us and say, why isn't this piece of transportation in the sustainability plan? And we'd say, oh, well, we are doing that. It's just that particular strategy or action or goal lives in Envision Longmont. And it was kind of confusing for folks. And so what we've tried to do with this dashboard is to not only be able to show each of these plans, so you can click on each one of them. So it brings in all of the content from what are the PDFs, but it puts it into a more interactive format. So it goes through each of the topic areas. You can click on each of these. It'll show you all of the actions in there. You can click on them and go kind of as deep as you want into any of those things. But also, if you go back to the home page, you can click on any of these tabs. So you can click to actions. And what we built out was these overarching themes, which we tried to make as high level as possible, but to capture a lot of these. So you could click on, say, transportation, and it'll bring up all of the actions across all of those plans focused on transportation. And then similarly, you can go to the indicators page, and it'll show you all of our indicators, and you can click on these and see how well we're doing, what are our targets and how well are we doing to meeting those targets. So we'll make sure if you all don't have this that you have the link to this, but it's a great platform. We're pretty excited about it. We are adding the Parks and Open Space plan in the coming months. We'll be adding the water efficiency plan once that's completed as well. And this is a very dynamic platform that we'll be adding and modifying as we have new plans, as we meet our targets and goals and those sorts of things. But it's a great place to see what are we doing and how well are we doing in meeting the goals and targets that we have laid out. So I want to point people toward that. The other thing that it has is this reports tab, so you can see our previous annual report. And then we have a report kind of library if you want to see historical documents, information about the Carbon Disclosure Project, which we report to. And then if you really want to go deep on the greenhouse gas side, there is this, what's called the scenario tool. And this goes really specifically into our greenhouse gas inventory, our projections based on both business as usual, and if we implement all of the strategies that we have identified. And then there's an opportunity where you can go into each of these areas. Okay. It'll show you that area specifically, and then you can click in the actions themselves, and you can, where do you turn on it? Turn it on?
At the top. So you can do it in 2 different locations. At the very top, there's a tab that says actions.
Oh, there we go, sorry.
You can also, where it says expand, so they kind of pull it up that way. So there's 2 different ways you can view the actions.
Okay, so Francie worked very hard with a consultant to help with this platform, so she knows all the pieces. But you can also go into the actions and you can kind of toggle these on and off and see how they impact our ability to meet our greenhouse gas emissions targets. So we hope this plan or this platform has something for everyone, how high level or how deep you want to go into. So does anyone have any questions or anything on that for us? Feel free to spend some time digging around on it. We're pretty excited about it, but it's a great introduction into all of the sustainability and climate action-oriented things that we have going on.
Or how we get to it.
Yep, it's
educators.longmontcolorado.gov.
Yep.
We can send out that link for y'all too.
It's also linked to the city's website. It's linked to this on a couple different pages. Like if you find our sustainability page, we do say we can track progress towards the plan here. Same for its link to our official Longmont page on our website. So we try to cross-link between the 2 websites.
Hopefully it should be pretty easy to find if you go on the website and want to make sure.
Yeah. And if you're like navigating on our city website and you're like, I was expecting here to link to here, like let me know, we can have links.
Mentioned this before, it's a remarkable, all of these documents are remarkable when you really delve into them. And for me, a very important thing is accessibility. And it is hard even for people who, you guys are staff, you're in this all day long. And so I wonder how much the community itself is accessing this and whether or not there are ways that we could work to make this a tool that helps to share education for the average person on the street. Because truly, reading any of these, reading the plan, I think it's like 117 pages or whatever, it's truly remarkable to show what our city has done. But my question is, for the average person on the street, do they know all that we're doing?
That's a great question, and I think that's a continuous effort for us. So, Francie worked with our communications team earlier this year to do some rollout and try to get it out there as much as possible, sharing it with folks like you all, and if you have other places that we can post it or share it whenever we do go to groups, when we work with, we do, as Francie mentioned earlier, a lot of internal support. So one of the things that we do, even when we meet with other divisions and work groups, is make sure that they know that this is available too. But I think that that will be an ongoing effort for us as sustainability outreach and education more in general. It is, you know, a continuous effort for us as well as.
And just to add, I recently met with one of our staff members who does more of the outreach, and we talked about when possible we see opportunities to just link, like if it's like a program update, if it's related, like the link you remember if you to get updates here. So we've talked a little bit about how to integrate that beyond just probably yearly. We'll do around the annual report a larger push and be like, don't forget about Longmont indicators. And the video that would pop up when you end is in progress. I haven't put it on hold. I realized the scenario tool hadn't been translated into Spanish yet, so I wanted to make sure that section was translated into Spanish before we finalize the video. But we're going to translate that soon. We're just finishing our mid-year update, so I'm hoping the video will be up in the next couple
Well,
of
I'm
months.
really excited to hear. I didn't realize that actually had gone forward.
Yeah.
Is there any media outreach, for instance, has the Times Call ever done any articles letting people know about these resources? I mean, obviously they cover all the individual fit projects and things when they're newsworthy. But again, I just think that there's such a depth of information here and so much work that, our city has put into this that, I want to see our neighbors know about this.
We did a press release, but I think it's that's not going to be because we did one press release. Like we know that there's going to be ongoing engagement as we get deeper. I think about as we finish the park open space. It's not transit, right?
It's just open. It's parks and trails.
It is the parks open space and trails. Okay, for some reason I thought the trails were captured, so I didn't misspeak. But I think that's an opportunity.
I think open is parks and trails, parks, trails, recreation, and open space got open space in a separate format.
I knew something was different in there. So anyway, when that one gets added, I think there's going to be continuous opportunities for us to, to kind of bring it back to the surface and say, hey, now you can see this online, and it's always going to reference back, and which is part of the intent of having this platform is to have one streamlined and consolidated place where people can really see all those things. So we're also going through the process right now of updating our website as an entire organization. So that's a big undertaking, and we'll hopefully create some more opportunities for more people to do this as we finish that. I say we, I don't have anything to do with that, but we as the organization. So
Well, also with, as with many other things, the best form of communication is word of mouth. So as we as community members let people know, that is the fastest way to get the information out. We, do a lot of communication throughout the city, and we try a lot of different avenues, but word of mouth is really always the best form of communication.
yeah, we're trying to make sure our council members, like they've seen this and we've talked about it several times, but as they get contacted by constituents and with questions and things like that, making sure that they know that this is a resource. So,
What does the frequency of data imports look like for it? Is that something that's happening annually or more regularly?
We'll do an annual and a mid-year report. Yeah, and some of the data, we try to update the data, and Francie, correct me if I'm wrong, because Francie's doing all of this right now. Mid-year data if we have it, but a lot of it is annual, and then it'll come through.
Yeah, and it is all annual data. We won't do like a halfway through the year data update, but some of our data, like I just did waste diversion data, isn't available until halfway through the year anyway. So that's where you'll kind of get some of those data updates at the end of the year, some of them in the middle of the year, and then transportation data like in the fall. So it's always annual data, it just kind of happens throughout, but the verbal updates, that's the always consistent to us here.
I wish we was a little more consistent, but it's a little bit too fast. The consistent timeline, but working on it. Yeah.
What's at least nice about the data is that if you're just updating a number, I can do that at any point throughout the year. We don't have to limit it to when we do the twice a year updates, because we have to translate the entire page for any written updates. But if it's just that the 2023 is 10%, you can have that at any point in the year, which is nice.
Yeah, and so Francis mentioned a couple of times, but I'll just highlight that it is also available in Spanish, and it is not just, not this one, just kidding, that's what Francis just said. Oh, there we go. And it's not just Google Translate, it's actually manually translated, it's reviewed by folks to make sure that the transitions are correct.
And if you happen to browse the Spanish version right now, you'll see that it is not currently matching English, because we are finishing requests for updates, and tomorrow is ended for translation. So we usually have a couple weeks where they're not perfectly matching, so we want to make sure we have that accurate translation.
So the other thing that I just wanted to go through with folks for our new folks, but then this is also that I have some updates for our existing folks. So every year at the beginning of the year, we'll talk through what do we have on the agenda for the year, what are the council priorities that we know are coming, and then what are priorities for this board. So as you all know, being folks in the sustainability field, sustainability is a very big umbrella. There's lots of topics within that. There's lots of different directions that we could go. There's lots of different things connected to, again, council priorities. We also have other boards that focus more specifically on certain topics. So we have our transportation board and we have our water board. And so we, every year, kind of have a conversation in the beginning of the year to try to lay out what are the key topics and priorities for this board to focus on. And then I do my best to kind of build out this work plan for the year. It doesn't always exactly align because things get, bumped around. Sometimes we have priorities that come up that we want to bring to this board that we didn't anticipate earlier in the year and whatnot. But just to give you a sense of kind of what falls into that, we have sort of always our general business, which are kind of standing items, climate resilience, energy, electrification, since that's a key priority from council, food systems, and land policies, natural environment, transportation, water, and then zero waste. So those are key topic areas. And then looking ahead to our August meeting, so we'll have an update from Platte River Power Authority and their integrated resource plan. So they came to us earlier in the year to talk about that planning process. And then potentially some updates from landscaping code that we talked about a couple of months ago, and then an update to the water efficiency plan. September, I just wanted to flag for you all, this is kind of a placeholder for key updates. That depends on where some other things are at. Hannah from Longmont Power Communications is likely to come talk to us about distributed energy resources and virtual power plants. This is confirmed, so I did contact Michael, who we had talked to, Mary Lynn, a few months ago on the passive design standards, and so he's going to come and talk to you all about that.
He's the architect who did the passive lock in Prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you phoned me because I figured that he probably knew something about our code.
Yeah, so
issues.
Yeah. And then a couple other things, you'll see that like September, this is not necessarily everything that's going to be on the agenda. It's just because I've had to bump things from other months, so they kind of just get spread throughout the year. Code cohort recommendations. So we've been participating in the Northwest Regional Building Code cohort over the last couple of years, looking specifically at things like energy efficiency, solar, EV, and building electrification to try to develop some consistency across the region as far as code requirements go. As we've been working on that, there's also been some code requirements that have come down from the state. And so as we are updating our building codes to align with the 2024 IECC, we are working right now with a consultant to do some cost analysis of those code requirements, and then our building services folks are still waiting unless Susan, clearly the 15th is passed and I don't think we have heard.
We haven't heard a thing, so don't
Everyone
hold your
is
breath.
still anxiously awaiting for code books to be available. They are quite late. So this is also dependent on when we actually get those code books and we can confirm what is in them. But when we do have them and we have all of that information, we'll make sure to come to you all to have a pretty in-depth conversation around what we're learning from that process, what those codes are, and then building services will be taking that to City Council for their discussion and their direction as well regarding building codes. And a couple of other things that we've talked about. So the conversation around regenerative agriculture, use of open space for ag and carbon sequestration and kind of how those things fit together. I've been in conversation with folks from our Parks and Natural Resources and Open Space group. So they will be coming to us and potentially some other folks. I know we've talked about some other regional folks that have expertise in this area. Yeah.
Can we move that to August? It looks like October is full, and August is not.
We have Platte River coming in August, and potentially, I can move it for, yeah, we also have the mid-year report. I can bump it, let's see. And I'm meeting with our open space folks, I think, in the next couple of weeks to make a plan for that presentation. So it depends on what else is confirmed for the August agenda. So like I said, these things aren't, beyond August, these things aren't set in stone because things get bumped around. But. And then we have the transportation mobility plan update. So I know Bill has come to you all, I think just once.
Lisa, can you let us know when you've confirmed when the ag thing is happening? Because I'll ask Ben to come and give us an update on the food truck progress.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, should he just come as public invited to be heard?
Sure, yeah. And then the 287 update and our Vision Zero, which is focused on transportation security. And then probably just a very quick final letter of support or something like that with regards to the transportation mobility plan, and then water efficiency plan. So, and then as existing folks know, but new folks may not know, we always cancel our December meeting because it is right before the holidays and we learned a long time ago that everybody wishes. So I always just,
if we had a cookie exchange, everybody would.
Maybe, that's right. We could revisit closer. If you all want to keep it, that's fine. It's just after years and years of doing this, I discovered that it's, or we could do something just celebratory. We could revisit that closer too. So, and then another kind of standing piece is that we do have the Boulder County, we always call it the sustainability tax for short, but it's the environmental sustainability matching grant program. That usually opens sometime in the fall, and we always require a letter of support from this board as we identify projects for that grant. So that will show up sometime in the fall as well. That date sometimes moves around a little bit. So yeah, that just orients kind of new folks of what are some of the topics that have been on the agenda and priority list for this year and what we will see coming up. As I mentioned, please don't hold me to any of this because there's a lot of tentativeness as I try to schedule.
Are there, trying to structure, are there opportunities where we engage directly with the community, like town halls with the board, or aside from the public hearing within meetings, but a more general or more even casual engagement with the community?
That's a great question.
I love that.
Yeah, I think typically we haven't done that other than public invited to be heard. It's always open. We have often asked you all to be volunteers at events that we do tabling and stuff at to help just provide general sustainability information and things like that. But mostly as an advisory board to city council. I mean, sometimes we do bring folks, Michael from the passive design stuff is an example. You know, we'll often bring folks from the outside to do presentations or provide information and that kind of stuff. But usually it's you all providing feedback directly to staff, or in some cases providing memos or recommendations directly to city council.
Speaking of that, are there any updates on if we're gonna have a new board sponsor?
No, it'll stay the same. So, sorry, if folks are not familiar, Marcia Martin is our council liaison. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, she issued a press release about whether or not she's gonna be starting time.
Oh, okay, that's not right. I'm looking
She
to
said
Becky.
she'll decide by the end of the year if she's gonna
Oh, okay.
resign or not.
So if she does step down, then yes, we would.
Well, I would just say that, since the issue is whether or not she can be here, I would rather have a board liaison that can actually attend our meetings. So, and I don't know how we would give our input on that.
We'll bring that concern to.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions?
Related with that, I think public outreach is very important. I was involved in Chitoslow, and I'm from Turkey. I was in a small town that's a member of Chitoslow, and the taxi driver knew all the rules to apply for Chitoslow. And that was very impressive. You know, the Chitoslow, one of the chunk of criteria is how aware people of the community. And when you mentioned that, just remember how impressed I was with the taxi driver. How beautiful this is. So maybe there's another chunk of tasks to outreach and make people aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that is a really critical piece. I will say that I think we've had a lot of turnover in our communications department, and are in the process of hiring a new director for that right now. And I think having that in place will help. Our team does a lot of community engagement. We work a lot with Wayne and his team that does a lot of neighborhood-based outreach that's going to speak to. I think one of the other efforts that we have underway is some of us from sustainability in the city manager's office and community neighborhood resources is looking at even accessibility of participation in things like boards and commissions or other groups. Like we have an equitable climate action team, we have our sustainability coalition, which I know you participated in a long time ago. At the very beginning, we have a bicycle issues committee, we have things like that, but we don't have a great sense of how aware are people of those opportunities to participate, how accessible are they, what are the barriers in place, and so we're working right now to put some surveys and things like that together to get a better understanding of that piece of it, which I know is just one piece. Wayne, and maybe I'll put you on the spot when you come up to talk more broadly about the Neighborhood Group Leaders Association, because I think that's a pretty unique thing that Longmont has as a conduit to speak directly to neighborhoods and things like that. But I think from a capacity and resources standpoint, we're always looking on how we can best leverage that to get more information out to more people.
I agree. I think we should be doing our strategic planning through the NIGLA. That's what I call them. Through the NIGLAs.
So interview process, is there a position opening in the fall?
No, I just have those as placeholders from one year to the next because that's, so I don't forget, because that's a pretty new thing that we just introduced in the last couple of years. So I can make sure to build it into the agenda if we need to talk about, do we have a selection committee or if something into it. So I just need to make space on the agenda. So it's just a reminder for myself.
Typically, the Sustainability Advisory Board does their recruitment in the spring though, because our terms go from July to June, so we usually do the midterm recruitment. Or mid-year, I guess, not midterm.
Well, I know that was kind of a lot, so feel free to reach out anytime, as I said, and then I will hand it back to Michelle.
from the election
Oh,
office.
I didn't pull it. I was trying to pull my agenda back up. Yeah, so given that we had some transition of folks midterm, we need to do an election of a new vice chair. So Michelle is our chair. So open the floor. If there's anyone that wants to volunteer.
I move to nominate Mary Lynn for position of vice chair.
I'll second that. Just because I've been here the longest. I don't really.
Are you okay
I
with
mean,
that,
I'm just
Mary?
saying, if you want to
do
turn
it.
around and nominate Ralph, so.
All right,
If he doesn't do it, I'm gonna nominate.
Could you remind everybody what the responsibilities of the vice chair are?
And what salary is.
yes, the salary is, the hand sanitizer you can utilize.
Which is a
and
200% raise.
Perhaps a cookie exchange should you decide to organize one. Yes, mostly the vice chair serves in the role to step in the off chance that the chair is not available to. Pretty low key responsibility.
My brain is always going too fast for the next thing I want to say to remember the Robert's Rules of Orders. Not a good choice.
Is there anyone else that is?
I'm certainly willing to do it if no one else wants to.
Yeah. I nominate Robert
Yeah.
to keep us on the rules of order.
Oh, there we go.
Is there a second for Robert?
All those in favor?
Anyone opposed? Any further discussion? All right, new vice chair, Robert Davis.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Keep up the good attendance, Michelle.
I was gonna say, actually, I should have forewarned poor people that Michelle will be stepping out for a little bit.
The December meeting, I was like, I might have like a 2-week-old.
So you may very well get to step in this chair.
We can have
We better be heard.
Baby's always welcome, if you so choose. Great. Michelle, now I'm okay.
Do we have any? We don't have any public events to be heard today. Okay, so we have our request for sustainable neighborhood solutions grant committee volunteers.
Wait, you want to come on up here?
Do you want to sit in my seat? I've got a lot of stuff here. No. Fancy seat.
He said he's going to need that.
No.
Okay. Oh, guys, on there, so.
No, sorry.
And it's on the Google, with Crown Scroll. On the Chrome, sorry. If you want to put it, just go that. It's on there.
I've had worse. Okay, we're sitting down in the room.
Yeah. And you can do that presentation. There you go.
Choose.
You should be able to just click on it and we'll go to the next one.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we'll figure it out. Just having an error. Anyway, well, hello everybody. So as I said before, I'm Wayne Tomac, I'm the Neighborhood Resource Coordinator. So the pretext for this is that we have a committee and we need a representative from this group to serve on the committee. What I'm going to do, especially since a lot of you are new, is give just a real brief presentation. I'm happy to go into more detail if you want me to. But just to give you a little context about what we're actually, why we're asking you to be on the committee.
You also just tell people like where your work group sits in the context of your, or we get into that.
No, it is not there. I tried to keep it very simple because I didn't know exactly how much time exactly we're going to have. So I am based in Community and Neighborhood Resources. which is seeing the vision, we're under the same department. We've had a lot of restructuring recently. I'm still getting used to where we are, which is actually nice. It shifted us. We used to be in community services, and now it's kind of changed last year, I guess. And it's kind of brought us into the same, across the kind of the same sphere as our sustainability, et cetera, is partially to make us more available to more of the organization, especially because a lot of the work we do is focused on community engagement, especially at the neighborhood level, and we also do a lot of work in conflict resolution, community relations, that kind of space as well, in the social equity world as well. No parking meet.
Can you give us the 1 minute on what is the NGLA?
Yes, that's going to be.
Okay, sorry.
I'll go a little bit more deeper than I was going to on it.
Okay.
But please, as soon as okay, just ask questions about anything. I may not put enough detail in some of these. So first of all, that kind of neighborhood context. So the context. So the Neighborhood Group Business Association is a network of neighborhood-based community groups. We make that distinction because there's a lot of different types of community groups. We won't go into too much detail. We specifically focus on geographically based neighborhoods. Those neighborhood boundaries are defined by those neighborhoods as opposed to neighborhood districts that the city has created that we use for data interpretation and that kind of thing. Some of our mapping projects that we're working on right now. So right now we have about 40 active neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods register with us. We consider them active groups when they register with us, and they have attended at least 2 of our monthly meetings that the NGOA holds. So they can be registered with us and not have attended those, and they're inactive. We also have about another 50 neighborhoods that have been registered at some point. I'm happy I can finally say we've always been kind of searching for where did the NGOA start. I've never been able to find that date. We know approximately. We finally found a document that officially said that started in 1986, partially in response to some violence and different things that were happening in neighborhoods around Longmont. Anyone who's been around Longmont for a while knows that there was some issues in the city around that time, the mid-80s, mid-90s. And part of the response was that we needed better communication with our neighborhoods. And so the NGOA was set up at that time. And so really one of our roles is to support those groups, to build a capacity, provide resources, funding, other support to build the strength of those groups, help make sure that they are representative of the neighborhoods. And one of the primary goals is for them to help create a two-way communication between the city and our residents. So we see the representatives, so they come together, we have a process for doing that. Those neighborhoods elect representatives that attend NGOA meetings, serve as kind of a voice of the neighborhood as well. And when we have concerns that we need to deal with them. And kind of help facilitate that conversation, hopefully collecting a voice. That works to varying degrees right now, but we're doing a number of things to try to increase our ability to kind of serve them and build their capacity right now. One last thing I'll note from that perspective, well, 2 things. One, there's kind of 4 primary areas that we help them focus on, which is building a sense of community, improving quality of life, focusing on sustainability and resilience within their neighborhood boundaries. And so obviously that sustainability and resilience is kind of a new thing as we have formed partnerships over the last years, number of years now, it's been a while, with sustainability. The other distinction I wanted to make is that, so you might be wondering about homeowners associations. So we make a distinction between a homeowners association and a neighborhood group. Many of our neighborhood groups are in a HOA neighborhood, and that's fine. We make this distinction because HOAs are by their nature exclusive to homeowners, we require that our neighborhood groups be inclusive. So we have renters, etc. And we work with the neighborhoods to try to make sure they're representative of everybody who's in whatever the demographics are of that neighborhood. About 85% of the registered neighborhoods right now have HOAs. The others are independent. Some of them have multiple HOAs that combined, which is right about, we believe, representative of kind of the city as well.
And I don't know, it's probably not this straightforward answer, but about how many neighborhoods are there total?
Very difficult question to answer. Partially because we traditionally allowed them to define their own. So we have, I think, 70 neighborhood districts, I think, that we created. But neighborhood boundaries are often much smaller than that. They tend to follow the HOA boundaries or subdivision boundaries, that kind of thing. It depends on how those boundaries get defined in the neighborhoods that aren't currently registered. Ideally, I think we would be around 100. Realistically, if you looked at, for example, subdivisions, anyone knows how many subdivisions, and there's many more than 100 subdivisions. I think it was at that scale, and so we've been working with them to try to define larger boundaries, more realistic what a neighborhood is, rather than these small kind of townhome subdivisions. But that's kind of a newer approach. So part of what I'm really going into tonight is that we two of the primary grants that we have given out in recent years, made available to active neighborhoods, is the Neighborhood Improvement Program grant and Sustainable Neighborhood Solutions grant. The Neighborhood Improvement Program has been around for about 30 years. There are different variations. The Sustainable Neighborhood Solutions grant, SNS, is newer. It's been around for about 4 years. That's COVID. We launched during COVID. It's very good time. And we've gotten to a point where that's matured a little bit. We've seen some areas where we think we can have improvements. So this year we've been going through a restructuring to partially unify those, but better take advantage of our resources, make it a little bit easier and clearer for the neighborhood groups to apply. We're always trying to kind of remove barriers, make it easier, so that they're spending their time and effort on actual projects.
Is there a particular calendar, or is there a basket of money, and if a neighborhood decides they want to do something, they come in and speak, or is there an application period? How does the process work for having funds flow to the neighborhoods if there's something they want to do?
That's what I'm going to talk
next
about.
slide, Ralph.
Yeah. If I don't outline it enough, let's come back and I'll fill in.
With creating the neighborhood associations, is that an active solicitation the city is doing, or is that something we expect the neighborhoods to come to the city to request? Does that make sense?
It's a good question. It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I would say traditionally we have waited for neighborhoods to come to us, but kind of been ready. We've had a process to. It's not something where they just give us an application and they're we go through a process where they need to kind of form a leadership team, reach out to the community, etc. More recently, we've kind of been developing a program. We actually just launched kind of the pilot version of that this week on Monday, where we will kind of take neighborhoods through a very specific process to build their capacity a little bit better, hopefully before they join the NGLA. Also for existing groups to kind of go through and build that process. Through that, we've been a little bit more active about reaching out and targeting neighborhoods. We've prioritized, especially in the first few years, looking at neighborhoods with demographics that don't traditionally participate. Especially neighborhoods of high rental, for example, right? Less likely to come from together. And we built the process a little bit around that. So much more targeting moving forward. So just a little more on the Sustainable Neighborhood Solutions Program and the grant within that. It's really kind of a unique partnership that we created a number of years ago now, really focused on kind of preparing our neighborhood groups as partners, really active in promoting sustainability, based partially on sustainability theory that was developed in Great Britain, around the idea that, government has a certain role, obviously, you guys are that, to further sustainability, but that's probably not enough to really reach the goals we want to, that we need the business nonprofit community, we need residents to all play a role in that. And so this helps take us and empower those neighborhood groups and the residents within there to be partners in this process. Kind of the intent of it. As we initially set it up, obviously the city, through sustainability and community neighborhood resources, was a partner. The Longmont Community Foundation has been a wonderful partner in the process as well. We've set up a impact fund that is where the funding lives for this project. And it gives us the opportunity to kind of pull in dollars from outside the city, so it's not just relying on city resources moving forward. And then obviously our community members as the local partner. So this can get a little complicated, this is why I wanted to do a graphic. Again, this is the restructure, so anyone who might have had some familiarity with these grants in the past, it will look a little bit different. It's different, but it's not that different. It's kind of a mashing together of what these grants were before. So we essentially have 4 grants. Okay, so what is current now under the Sustainable Neighborhood Solutions moniker? And we have $10,000 a year that the city allocates to this fund. The first one are what we call workshops and activities, and I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'm happy to answer questions if you want. These are kind of very short-term, one-off kind of programs. We have funded things like a workshop on rain barrels. What are they? How would you implement them in your own home? That kind of very just educational, 1-2 hour kind of program. So you'll see kind of 3 funding categories here. The main one, the $1,000, that is what is available to an active neighborhood who has also participated in our neighborhood leadership series, which is a series of trainings that we offer, partially focused on HOA board development and partially focused on general kind of neighborhood leadership skills. For example, in August, we'll be doing a water conservation series. So a series that we focus on water conservation at the neighborhood level, where we'll talk about what does that mean, what are the kind of projects you can do, what resources, grants, etc. are available to you, and then they'll culminate with a tour that we'll do with some gardens around town. The city's worked on, that's on our worked on. So if you participate in that, which is kind of our expectation within the last 12 months, anyone from your neighborhood, then you qualify for the kind of that base amount. If you have no one in your neighborhood has participated in the last 12 months, then it's that no NLS category. So you can see this grant, it's $1,000 if you have, it goes down to $250 if you haven't. Only accessible to active neighborhoods as well. And then we also have for the sustainability grants what we call holistic bonus. So the expectation you'll see on benefit categories, sustainability, you have to be furthering one of the sustainability topic areas to qualify. If that project's substantively furthers more than one category, then you can get the holistic bonus as well. To be clear with that, we don't a lot of benefits that you can say are sustainable benefits. You could qualify under multiple categories, right? So this is a water conservation or maybe a natural environment, etc. That we don't count. It's got to be substantively different. The example I always use is a few years ago we funded a turf removal pollinator garden. And so that kind of they could have put that in a number of different categories, but really it's the same benefit. So they qualified that way. They also included an educational program to teach local kids and neighbors about pollinators and why is it important to do a pollinator garden and why should they consider removing their grass and doing a pollinator garden. That is a totally different benefit that they've created through that project. That will qualify for that bonus. So it's something that exists there. We want to encourage those kind of more holistic views of sustainability, but also acknowledge that that's really rare. And we really have kind of a high standard for whether a project would qualify for that bonus. So the second category of grant under the SNS is programs and resources. These are kind of more long-term assets in the community, not really a one-time thing, but you may be funding for kind of the setup costs, for example. It may be maybe you want to set up a youth sustainability club within the neighborhood. And so you use this grant maybe for some of the setup costs to get it going. It won't fund it over time, but it would fund that initial effort. This, where we've been using this most over the last couple of years, we've had a number of neighborhoods who have been creating water conservation master plans, landscape master plans for water conservation in the neighborhood, so that they can look at that as a kind of stepped, coordinated effort of improvement over time, because they can't afford to do the whole neighborhood at once. But then that can kind of create a structure of, this year we're going to do this project, next year we're going to do this project. And so a lot of communities have taken interest and started using it that way. You can see the base amount is $5,000 for that. I should note that the approval on both of these is the S&S committee, so that's why I'm kind of going into the detail with this one. And then the sustainability categories. So then we shift to the neighborhood improvement program. And this is a change where one of the grants that was traditionally under the S&S program, we've actually shifted to the NIP. One of the primary reasons is for resource availability, so we can use resources a little bit more efficiently. Because as you can see, the NIP has $50,000 is accessible through it. And so I'll explain more about that here in a second. So first of all, again, 2 grants available. The first one doesn't apply to this committee. Those are neighborhood enhancement projects, which are similar to the traditional neighborhood improvement program grants that we've given, which have not been tied to sustainability. We've kind of been encouraging that in recent years. There are 4 separate categories, quality of life categories, that needs to fit into one of those sections. You can see it's $6,000. We kept this primarily because we have a lot of projects that maybe could qualify under sustainability, but what we found is that can also kind of water down the sustainability value of every project to saying, oh yeah, we fit into this category, right? And we didn't want to see that happen. And we have a lot of smaller projects that are really valuable that maybe don't really fit real well in sustainability, and we didn't want to force that, even though they're really good quality projects, improving the neighborhood. So we have a NIP committee, which is made up of representatives within NGOA who approve these grants. And then the final category is kind of join together those. We call them the sustainable improvement projects. So these are for larger, usually kind of more tangible physical project improvements within the neighborhood. You can see that one of the benefits of doing this is we've been able to really increase the eligibility amount up to $12,000 per project. And the holistic bonus is really significant. You can see why we would want to give that out on a regular basis at that amount. I have found that if you just say money is available, people will apply for that most amount that's available. So we kind of discourage neighborhoods to make sure that you really are building a project that's deserving of that. We're not just going to give that away to every project that says we're doing that. Being that this is more substantial, both the S&S committee and the NIP committee both review these grants. It has to get approval from both committees now, so that's a little bit different. It still meets the sustainability category, and with both the NIP grants, the neighborhood is also required to do a presentation to the NGOA at their meeting.
What are some of the examples of the sustainable improvement projects?
So we've done a number of kind of turf removal projects, pollinator gardens types of things. That has dominated water conservation projects. Has dominated this year for obvious reasons, especially among the HOAs where water costs really.
Have you been involved in any community gardens?
We have not done it. I've had a couple communities who asked about that. That's a complicated one. City has supported those in the past. We would potentially support it, but there's a lot of details that we would expect before we would support that one. Yeah, I'll get to that. So getting into something a little bit more tangible, I'm going to kind of skip through this. So the categories that we accept, so the sustainability categories, right, has to be tied to improving one of these. You're very familiar with the 10 in the sustainability plan, I assume. We kind of divide them up for clarity. we're talking to neighborhood groups that maybe don't have a lot of knowledge of sustainability, right? So it's also kind of an educational piece that we're doing. So we divided up kind of the people, planet, prosperity structure to make that a little easier for folks. The planet one, pretty straight and simple to the sustainability plan. We do, because of the neighborhood focus, add a couple of categories to those 10, 4 to be specific. The community and cohesion one is kind of what justifies a lot of our projects and this program in general. And then you can see we actually add education, health, and public safety, because we find a lot of, that's important at the neighborhood level. And we want to be able to acknowledge that and allow them to do those kinds of projects. And then finally, in the prosperity category, we have economic vitality, of course, and then we added self-sufficiency, which is really more the neighborhood self-sufficiency. We want them to get to where they can deal with issues, for example. If things arise, they really have the capacity and ability to know how to resolve those things. And hopefully that reduces some of the burden on the city as well, if they can do that. And then you'll see the NIP, the 4 NIP categories, a little bit more basic. But some of those grants might also fit into sustainability categories as well.
What about disaster preparedness? So especially with natural disasters, the neighborhood communities are almost exclusively relied on in the moment. So I'm just wondering if that's been considered as an option.
Absolutely, not as a separate category that we've defined. I think you could fit into multiple categories here, right? But we have had some conversations with our emergency management office and others about what could that look like at neighborhood level. How can we support kind of neighborhood planning for that kind of thing? It's kind of a new thing to consider neighborhoods as an asset in that, especially in kind of the pre-planning process. But I think we're increasingly understanding that value. We have, simply having a neighborhood group is a huge value. We've seen that with the floods and 2013 floods, etc. But yeah, having a little bit more coordinated effort beforehand. So that might be, I didn't intend to go into today, but we have a project library that we're developing because it is like, okay, my neighbor wants to do something, what do I do here? So we're developing a project library that have a kind of examples, resources, that kind of thing. And that's one of the kind of projects we've talked about including in that we haven't done.
Yeah, we're trying to develop in some kind of turnkey projects that already have like a budget built out and some people can take some of the work off the neighborhoods themselves, some of the work on things that kind of are desires.
And is that something where the association would, or sorry, mixing up names, but the association as a whole would support the neighborhoods if they wanted to go out and find other funding to fund, apply to a nonprofit or a state program to support their project if this grant didn't come through for them, that they can pursue other financing options?
So we, as staff, would kind of support them in that effort. That can be challenging because most of our neighborhood groups are not 501c3s, they're not kind of official entities, and it can be difficult to get grants from that perspective. As they traditionally, that's not really where funders have seen value. But we would support a neighborhood that kind of found a grant that they wanted to do that with. And we have on some occasions been able to kind of support neighborhoods that way. Not within the emergency management yet, but yeah.
Where has any of the neighborhoods used more than others? That's another good complement water conservation grant that targets neighborhoods as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Northern Water has their relatively new, 3 years old, I guess, grant for HOAs. And we have had a number of neighborhoods that kind of have worked, I don't know how many in total, but I think maybe 3, at least 2 or 3 who've received that grant in Northern Water. Some of them have used that in combination with our grants as well.
Right.
And we have at least 2 or 3 neighborhoods who are also talking with Research Central about the grant that they're going to put out for this summer as well, from a water conservation standpoint. It's an interesting grant.
I'll also say one of the values of having the Longmont Community Foundation as a partner is that they have some more flexibility in terms of how they can provide funding to folks too. So they work really hard to reduce those barriers for folks to be able to access.
Yeah. we think there's a lot of opportunity in that space that we haven't quite gone out, but we're kind of we're still being on infrastructure right now.
You're still doing a lot. You're right.
We're trying.
But we want to do so much more.
Yes.
This is also, it's been a pet project, I would say, Wayne and I for several years at this point. For it, so.
Yes, it has. Okay, so getting to, sorry, I'm going.
No, that's fine, we have time.
Okay, good. So getting kind of that schedule, this gets a little bit more into kind of the community and expectations here. So kind of the grant schedule, and again, this is brand new. And so we still have our neighborhoods getting used to it. Frankly, earlier in the year, we did not open it up for applications. The first time we did was the March-April application period. We did receive one application there, which, because we haven't had some of the infrastructure in place, we haven't actually been able to review yet. So it's outstanding. So one of my goals is to hopefully get the community together as soon as possible. Even as early as next week, if that's a possibility, which will be a little bit off of schedule, but since that is waiting and there are some time-sensitive elements to that project, I'm hoping we can really do that fairly quickly. But so you can see what we accept applications at any time throughout the year, but there's basically 5 times a year when we actually review them. So you can see kind of a bi-monthly basis. So if you take, for example, the January-February funding cycle, so the application is due to us on the first Thursday of that first month, so the first Thursday of January. We have a month where we kind of go back and forth and ask for revisions, etc., if necessary. Any changes are due the first Thursday of the primary month, in this case February. Once those are reviewed, then we, by the second Thursday, I'm sorry, this is a little company, that's why I'm giving you the graphic. By the second Thursday, we send it to committee members, whether that's the SNS or to NIP, give them at least a few days, hopefully up to a week, but at least 4 or 5 days to review those, do a basic evaluation on them. And then we meet, originally we had scheduled that on the Wednesday before the third Thursday, before we realized that that is today. And so the representative from this board probably wouldn't be able to attend. So we've tentatively moved that to Tuesday, whereas that might be a burden on somebody to have to do 2 nights in a row, so we can discuss that. But that's kind of the expectation right now because of the rest of the scheduling for that. Essentially, the SNS committee makes their decision on that Tuesday. The Thursday is the GLA meeting, so if it's an NIP project where a presentation is required, that's where the committee does the presentation. And then the week after that is where the NIP committee does their review. If they get through all that, then we award the grant. So you can see we have 2 more funding periods left. The July-August, we did receive an application for that, so we will want to proceed with this schedule. At least for now, we will get that grant out to everybody by August 8th. Still, it looks like a pretty solid grant. I don't think there'll be many changes we need to make before that date. And then our hope would be to have that formal meeting on the 13th of August for the SNS committee. And then there'll be one final round in September, October, with the SNS committee meeting on October 15th. We don't do a November, December. Partially because neighborhoods are not really focused on doing projects and applying for grants at that time. Yes, maybe cookies, I guess. Although we have other ones for cookies. Sorry.
It's a thing.
Apparently, I didn't know. Are there sustainable cookies?
They can be vegan.
So we do take that off. That also gives our staff a little bit of time because we have a lot of end-of-year work that we need to do, and lets us focus on that and get prepared for the next year. So I tried to make that fairly simple. Is that fairly clear? Calendar. I didn't include some of the other things because I didn't want it gets complicated very quickly.
I'm actually pretty interested in doing this, but I'm only going to be on this committee for 1 more year, so you have to have somebody reapplying a year.
So that is up to you. What we ask, and I'll talk about expectations here in a minute. We haven't really set how that is. We kind of allow each group to define how they select their representative. So if you as a group are okay with that, I'm fine with that. Really, my biggest interest is that we just always have a representative.
So, does that representative attend the group NGLA meetings? Any or some of them?
They do not. They're welcome to, but that's not necessary.
It's just to participate in that selection process that we're
Right.
just looking for. Yeah, that's the main priority, is to review the grant applications and participate in the selection process.
And NGLA meetings happen monthly or quarterly?
Monthly,
Okay.
third Thursday of every month.
And is the whole public invited to those as well?
Technically, they're open to the public. We don't advertise them to the public.
Okay.
Partially because when we have more neighborhood representatives than we can actually handle in the space. And we do sometimes talk about topics that have some sensitive elements to them, and which can be difficult if there's general public there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're technically open to them. We certainly be happy if any of you wanted to come out. Certainly welcome. So really quickly, the structure of that board: we have 5 voting members. 2 of those members are HOA neighborhood representatives, one from an HOA neighborhood and one from an independent neighborhood. So we kind of get those varying interests and voices on there. We have a representative from the business community, focused in the sustainability space. Then a member, hopefully, from the Sustainability Advisory Board as well. And then also a representative from the youth community. Frankly, that's been quite a challenge to get someone from the youth community that can do that. So that has largely been vacant, unfortunately. So right now, those are the 2 seats that are vacant at the moment. Obviously, most of you will know Jim has been serving for the Sustainability Advisory Board, done a really great contribution that we're really grateful for. And then there's also 2 non-voting members, would be the sustainability manager, so Lisa, and the neighborhood risks coordinator, which is myself right now. We're really there more to be kind of the content experts, aid in the conversation, the discussion, answer questions, that kind of thing. And then we also serve, if there is a kind of a tie in voting, we also serve as a tiebreaker.
Sir, when you say youth community, what's the definition of that?
We've kept it pretty broad. We've had conversations with St. Mary Valley School District. We actually had a couple representatives identified, but we were never kind of able to make that work. We looked at the youth center, for example, would be somebody. We want somebody who is a member of the youth committee, so not necessarily someone who works with the youth community, but someone who can kind of bring that voice into it and hopefully kind of encourage that leadership in sustainability, kind of learning about it, and kind of starting to become more of a young sustainability leader and take that to the broader community. If you have ideas, we would love to hear them.
Wait, is there a general age of the offender?
So we've typically looked at least 18 because they are, this is a fairly professional process. Well, hopefully a highly professional process, I guess. And just somebody who's kind of comfortable being able to get on. All of our meetings are virtual. I should mention that. Kind of comfortable with those processes, kind of both kind of the maturity of going through this. But we kind of looked, I think, kind of in the 18, like later high school to college level, 21, 22 kind of space. So the committee itself and responsibilities. So we kind of covered this a little bit, but one would be to review and evaluate applications prior to the meetings. We'll give you at least a few days. We hope to give you at least a week on those, and that's kind of at your pace. You just do that on your own time. We do have kind of an evaluation document that will ask you to kind of just evaluate it on certain criteria, and I'll show you those here in a second. Those aren't kind of final, we're not score based, so it's like, oh, here's the one that got the highest score. Those are kind of a guide for us to have reviewed those and then come together and have a discussion and make a decision as a committee about where to go on that. So we'll have it in that meeting, that's the third Tuesday basically. We'll have a discussion about those grants, come to a consensus. And then for the S&S grants, that's the final award decision. For the sustainable improvement projects within the NIP, that decision then gets forwarded to the NIP committee, and they must also review it. So if the S&S committee were to say, for example, that this does not really meet the sustainability criteria, we don't think that this is an appropriate project to fund, then that wouldn't go to the NIP committee. And then, so the award decisions that are available to the committee, there's 3 different options. First would be to simply approve the request as proposed. Frankly, if I've done my job working with the neighborhood, most of the grants should meet it, right? But I also can't force them to do anything, and sometimes they don't, or I was wrong, right, in the interpretation that the committee would have. And you disagree with me. The second would be to approve with a modified award or conditions. We've done this a few times where we felt that the grant that was being requested for the project really was too much, that it wasn't justified. Or 2 is we've had a few more times recently, is that where maybe the committee felt that they needed a little bit more information, or there's some criteria they wanted to ensure was being met. Maybe a qualification of someone who's going to be hired to do this or something. And so they'll say, we'll approve this amount under the condition that this is met. Or a few times they say, okay, we'll approve it, but Wayne, we want you to follow up on this piece with them. If that's meant, we approve it. If not, then we don't. The third option would be to simply deny the funding. In either 2 or 3, the expectation is that the committee will provide guidance on why it wasn't approved or why it was changed. And especially in the case it was denied, because our goal is not to deny funding, our goal is to give out funding, as much funding as we can, to provide guidance on what could be changed about this application that would have made it approved. Achieve that standard. Our hope is that it's enough information that the neighborhood, if they so choose, could implement those changes, reapply, and then get that project to move forward. So real quick, I'll just go through what are those criteria that we ask the committee to actually look at with these grants. It is the same basic criteria, a couple minor changes as the NIP committee also uses. First one is just to look at what the overall obligation. Is this a good project? Is it put together well? Does the budget make sense? Well justified, good quality project. Second is that benefit. From the S&S standpoint, it's the sustainability benefit specifically. With the other NIP grants, it's just the kind of that quality of life benefit is a general good public benefit. So that does it further. One of those 14 sustainability categories in some way, a sufficient way. Community participation, we expect this to be a collective process. So how has the broader community been involved and shown support for the project? What we don't want is that there's a community leader, maybe the HOA president, who's like, this is my project, I'm going to do it, and just goes forward and does it. Or it just says, all right, everyone's okay with this, right? I'm going to do this. We don't want to fund that, right? We want to know that the community's been involved, and they've set up a committee. Those are our best projects where there's a lot of different interaction with the community. There's clear support for it. We require a contribution. This is really a funding contribution. We don't require it in terms of financial dollars, though. They can contribute financially. They can contribute through volunteer planning hours, through sweat equity, actually working on the project, through donations, that kind of thing. So there's a number of ways to kind of meet that. We have, for the first time, implemented kind of a minimum percentage that we expect, and I would say that's very much a minimum. We would expect to exceed that. Especially with the way that we value volunteer hours. We can't meet that minimum. Probably should be funding that project. Next is longevity. If you want to see this grant before, we used to call it sustainability, which was very confusing to people. So we changed it to longevity, really because the point of this, right, is that this is going to be a long-lasting project. It's not going to be broken or not working in 2 years. There's a clear maintenance plan that it's going to last and be good use of tax dollars. Right? And then need. This is really establishing that if we don't fund this, it's going to get done anyway. The HOA has the funding, and they're just going to do it. And they're going to go, we can save a few dollars. That's not really what we want to fund. If it's the HOA is like, well, we might do it, but it's going to take us 3 years to raise the funds to do this. Okay, that's probably still a need, right? I think it's done sooner than later. So it's really, are they justifying that this funding is going to help them get this project done? And well, otherwise. And then finally, these are not necessarily evaluation criteria, but they're kind of considerations that we include. Or priorities are, for creative projects, we want to fund creativity, we want to fund replicability. I should come up with a term for that apparently. Those projects that once it's done, we can capture that in the project library, and then other communities can easily kind of do this as well, right? Make this as easy as possible for each communities. And then that holistic sustainability goals, obviously. And so, so I'll say like time commitment. So obviously throughout the year, we have those 5 application periods. Our review sessions have lasted maybe an hour, usually, depends on how many grants we review. By spreading it out, we expect fewer grants per time, so shorter. So probably half an hour to an hour I would expect on that Tuesday. This is on Tuesday. And then maybe an hour or so, maybe a little bit more to do the actual review. Right? Obviously, if there's 3 grants, it'll take a little bit longer to do your individual review on your own time. All told, maybe 10 to 15 hours per year expectation. Okay, sorry, that was a lot. I apologize.
Sorry, that was great.
It's usually a 2-hour presentation. I usually have like 50 slides. I thought I was all proud I cut it down so much.
So I'm thinking about an organization that I work with called Community Connections Project. I don't know if you know about them. They're in, I'm not sure what the neighborhood is. Kensington? Anyway, it's just north of the neighborhood I live in. And one of the focuses that Director Karen has is she wants to start like an urban food forest project where folks are sort of gardening together and sharing the produce. And something like that would need a tool library. And there's a facility there where they could be like kept and checked out and such. Is that the kind of project that you would be, okay?
Yeah, I think, obviously details, but yeah, I think that could conceivably be a good project.
Okay.
Assuming they're a registered neighborhood, that would be the
I'm not sure if it
caveat
is.
there.
But if they're not, and this
I'll
is
just help
an
them get
entry
it
point
started.
for them to
Yeah, she would
go
be,
through that
if
process.
she probably doesn't even know about this. I've mentioned NGLA to her before about it, she's gonna walk on that, so I could help her get started.
And they have to go through that, so they have to go through the training to get registered, somebody from that group, is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a time there yeah. And part of that is to also make sure that there's a real commitment. We made an active neighborhood instead of just registered a few years ago, because we did see there were certain neighborhoods who would just register, never show up at when they enjoyed the meeting, didn't really think that they were doing kind of the collective, setting up meetings and those kind of things. They're really just applying for the funding. So we changed that criteria a few years ago.
Just a simple logistics question. I think you said the meetings are all virtual. What time are they?
So we can adjust that, but they have been at 5 o'clock last year. But we haven't done any this year, obviously, because we were doing the change. But that's one of those things. Once we have the committee solidified, we'll kind of find what the best timing is for everybody.
If there's anyone other than me who wants to do this, raise your hand now.
I'm certainly interested.
I'm just curious, how did you come up with the team members. I mean, 2 from NGLA, 1 from this board, 1 from business committee, and you. So.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Harkening
So-
back to some pretty days.
Yeah, it's just some more early conversations, our experience in general. And I think also partially going back to that kind of model that I mentioned of bringing those different sectors together. We really looked at like how do we get that business community, the nonprofit community, the neighborhoods. How do we kind of get them so they're all part of this decision and all informed, right? The long-term idea is that that's a way to help raise funds, right? By including the business community in it, that it's a way to kind of help those different communities be more informed about each other. Our hope is that we, by having a business community member, that we can learn a little bit about, sustainable businesses and that kind of thing, can, maybe inform this process, maybe inform projects a little bit. The neighborhood representatives, I think that's really about very obviously, right?
Robert, you should do it because I'm going to talk to my neighborhood and the sub-neighborhood about doing projects, and I'll be involved in projects that I've never.
Do you want to do a project or just vote on the project?
I'm going to do both. I'm going to vote on my project.
You could recuse yourself.
We do have a conflict of interest clause. We certainly had.
I'm going to leave, and y'all get to vote on my project when I leave.
But I'll leave the cookies behind.
That's right.
And we actually have seen community members who their neighborhoods applied, partially because they're the ones that are most informed and comfortable.
Yeah.
One of our difficulties is that we did launch during COVID, so we were trying to educate people about a new grant program that was a little bit complicated. That involved sustainability, projects that they may not know. And something we're running into a lot is that people, and this exists with sustainability in general, right? You go and they're like, sustainability, this is great. We want to do sustainability stuff. And you're like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, I have no clue what that really means. Like, what is what is a neighborhood sustainability project? Even I think people who are very much committed and green, it's not always the easiest answer. Which is really why we start focusing on the project library. We're like, you may be really committed to sustainability and still not really know how to put a neighborhood project together.
So, for example, I'll tell Karen to watch this after, she'll be embarrassed that I brought it up. But CCP, if they had a staff member that wanted to coordinate, could there be a little bit of money for them to coordinate the neighborhood, or is it only going to be like for stuff? Is it just bricks and mortar or supplies?
So to coordinate what exactly?
So like coordinate the urban, coordinate the different plots. You know what I mean, and the gardening, and to getting the neighbors together, putting together the meetings.
So there definitely could be money for planning.
Okay.
The key there, and I should have said this before, is that it does have to be a neighborhood group, right?
Yeah.
So they couldn't apply as the community connected.
CCP. Well, no, but they could be the site where this stuff could live. Because I think a lot of these problems, the problem is that the neighborhoods don't have a community. There's no like community shed.
There's no space there, actually. Yes. Yeah, it's a huge issue. We do a lot of projects in parks and that kind of thing.
Right.
In the independent neighborhoods.
So I'm
They
just
stage
thinking
ways.
in terms of like a local partner who could sort of provide a space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, potentially. One of our application questions is who owns the property, and are they approving and agreeing that this is going to be publicly accessible for the neighborhood?
Well, I nominate Robert.
You're really passionate about it. I mean, I think.
I don't know.
Ambassador.
I'll do it.
Robert is our new vice chair, but.
Right. Robert, I think you'd be vice chair, so if you really want to make me do this.
I second you.
Okay. Yeah, those are big chunks of money.
So
That's
Robert
serious.
moved and Ethan seconded.
Yeah. All those in favor of Mary having our representatives?
Okay.
Anyone opposed? Same.
I was just curious, do we revisit it like when your term is ending?
Yeah. Yeah, so similar to we had Jim kind of give, so for new folks, we did have Jim, who was our representative, give a little spiel last month about his experience, but we wanted to wait to have the new members come on to determine who comes in.
But honestly, I don't even see how this is going to get going unless the representative attends the NGO meetings. I think that has to happen regularly. just so that there's an opportunity to sort of like talk to people and get to know them and just be that extra. And I've been wanting to attend the EGLA meetings anyway. So I think that would be my approach, which is what you know.
Well, thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne,
for your time. I'll let you maybe connect with Mary, otherwise I'm happy to send you her contact info, but okay, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all. I will ask, do you think that you could do a review next week?
Yes.
Woohoo!
I really want to give this community a response.
My life is more and more about grants for some reason.
There you go.
I mean, it used to be in the past, but
All right, well, moving on to projects launched during COVID, and we are also seeking volunteers for. We also have the Sustainable Opportunities Lifestyle Leadership Program, which we also do in partnership with Wayne and Guillermo from the Community Neighborhood Resources team. That's a program that launched during COVID and took a little while to get off the ground, as you can imagine. Sending volunteers into other people's homes to do sustainability assessments was a little bit difficult of a sell during that for quite a long period of time. But we really got through that program pretty well established. We have a new sustainability coordinator, I guess not that new anymore. Wow. 2 years, not new at all. I was like a year, but yeah, it's been 2 years. So Zach Lance, he comes to these meetings sometimes, but he's our sustainability coordinator focused on residential programs. So that's one of his main focus areas. And he wanted me to put a call out to all that we're looking for volunteers for that program in particular. So we're looking for bilingual English-speaking volunteers, Spanish-English-speaking volunteers, folks who are passionate about the environment, sustainability, and community to be a volunteer sole sustainability ambassador. So you'll receive an in-depth training on sustainable lifestyle best practices, community resources, and environmental rebate programs. And then you go out in pairs to conduct sustainability assessments for Longmont residents, so going into people's homes, doing those assessments, talking to folks. Sometimes that involves helping point people in the direction of resources and whatnot. And that would start in September, so folks are asked to commit at least a year of service. That is around 8 hours a month, so it definitely is more of a commitment than what Wayne was talking about. But the schedules are pretty flexible. So if folks are interested, I provided Zach's contact information in the memo that went with that description. So do you all have any questions about
So what kind of expertise do you need to have to do this? Is it just passion?
It is mostly passion, yeah. So we'll do it, and I tap Wayne because Wayne helps run those training programs, but I mean, we'll train you on everything that you need to know. I think it's more about the passion and the desire to support community members, and there's definitely some, I think, cultural sensitivity and competency kind of components of that. But Wayne, do you want to jump in and add to anything? It's not like in-depth technical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's mostly kind of basic stuff. Well, it varies, but we also try to, when we do volunteers, we try to combine them, so they complement well. And we look at what the household is interested in. So for example, one of our volunteers is an HVAC specialist. So if the household is kind of interested in those factors, we make sure that he goes on that visit. The training will kind of include that. We actually have kind of a matrix of sustainability behaviors that's kind of split up by each of the sustainability topic areas. And also by, are they kind of like a beginner? This person doesn't know anything, they're just interested, or maybe they're just interested in saving money, right? To kind of intermediate to advanced. Those kind of first adopters we go to that have solar, and we've had people who have set up like really crazy engineering, like tracking everything in their home, so that we kind of adapt to those. But yeah, if you weren't really comfortable, initially we're not going to send you to that complicated household. But in the training, we're really looking at doing a little bit kind of more hybrid style, you have a chance to kind of at your own pace absorb that kind of training on the actual issues, and then in-person trainings will be more about kind of the cohort and getting to know each other and some of those processes, how to actually go into a home and what to consider and that kind of thing.
Although we would accept you to go in and install perms or energy resource management systems and connect them to people's washing machines.
There you go. But it is definitely one of those situations too that we try to make sure that folks are prepared with different resources. As you talk to folks, you may discover, that folks that really benefit from knowing how to apply for SNAP, or maybe folks didn't know that the bus system is free, or those sorts of things. So it's like, people will start to talk to you about different things and be prepared to know how to actually resources and stuff too. So
I nominate Robert as our representative.
we don't have to have an actual representative for that, but
I have a few
if
friends
you,
who I think would be really interested.
yes, please,
in having back.
if y'all are interested or know folks that are interested, Ralph, I go back to your comment earlier about education and engaging people. This is a really great program. It's one that I think is definitely a word of mouth. Like once neighbors have good experiences and starting to talk to their neighbors about stuff, so we're really trying to build that.
Is it mainly the home energy efficiency, or is it other programs?
Wayne, do you want to jump?
What was the question?
I was just wondering if it's like mainly I know my neighbor did like the home energy efficiency. I was just wondering if it's anything else.
Was it the energy audit?
Yeah,
That's it? Yeah.
Yeah, our goal, we rarely achieve this, but is to touch on each of the 10 sustainability topic areas in some way through the visit. A lot of time we just run out of time for that. So certainly within energy, we try to connect them with what those resources, with efficiency works, etc. We do some in-home kind of upgrades. We'll install light bulbs, do some of those kind of basic things. We use those more as kind of conversation starters as well. But yeah, we try to touch on all of those. It does end up being like water, energy, kind of heavy. But it kind of depends on the household and what resonates with them. We'll include whatever we can.
I think we need to be bilingual to do this.
We are looking for folks. You can tell me if we're looking for monolingual folks, but right now the big focus is really we're starting to get more interest from the Spanish-speaking community, and we want to make sure that we have more volunteers that can be available. Guillermo from Wayne's team is bilingual, and so he's been supporting a lot of those, but we're trying to expand that capacity and reach more into the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I would say that bilingual is our priority. We're really trying to adapt the program right now so that we can better meet kind of Spanish-speaking households. But if you're interested, we would love to know and hear from you. And so please, even if you're not bilingual, let us know.
Turkish doesn't count.
It does at some point. I just learned that we have 68, I think, different countries represented in Longmont. People come from, so yeah. I think Hindu is probably our next target.
Okay, so a couple of events that I just wanted to highlight for you all that are coming up. So tomorrow, we have both our Plastic Pollution Solutions event. In case folks didn't know, it's Plastic Free July. So folks from our team, in partnership with some community partners and the library, are hosting that event here at the Civic Center at 6 o'clock. And then also, if you want to come early, there's also the Transportation Mobility Plan open house that's starting at 5:30. I guess I should have brought those around. 5:30 to 7 at the library, and then 6 to 7:30 over here at the Civic Center. So an evening of sustainability. If you all want to come out for that, we would love to see you. And then our next Sustainability Coalition meeting is on August 8th. So that is 5:15 to 6:45, and those meetings are virtual. So if you haven't been to one of those before or in a while, it's a great opportunity to, we usually do some general sustainability updates. We try to highlight a partner that's doing work in sustainability, and then it's just a good networking opportunity for folks from across the community that are engaging in sustainability and all kinds of different things. So it's an opportunity as well. And then one I didn't have on here, but that I wanted to share with you is Jack's Solar Garden, who I think probably everyone might be familiar with. Is there anyone that's not familiar with Jack's Solar Garden? It's an agrivoltaic project. I think it's technically has a Longmont address, but not in the city limits. Is that correct? So they are having an event on July 27th. called Harvesting Home, which is empowering Boulder County's food and energy future from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's $5 per person. Check that out. There will be folks from Longmont Power and Communications, I believe, there, and folks from the county as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention was a follow-up from that Westminster group that pulled together the regional sustainability or environmental boards from across the region. So several months ago, for those of you that are new, we had folks from the Westminster Board of Environmental Affairs, or Advisory Board, I can't remember exactly what their title is, reach out to say they were interested in connecting with other similar boards from across the region just to get a sense of what are the priorities that different groups are working on and are there opportunities to potentially do some collaboration. So both Ralph and Mary from this group attended to just kind of give some overviews of what the priorities from this board are, recognizing that this board very much serves as a council advisory board and is directed by the priorities of city council. So we have some constraints within that. But they sent a follow-up email recently where they put together a survey that they're asking folks to fill out, not as a board member, but as just an individual from the community that is interested and engaged in sustainability and environmental work. So that was the email that I was referring to last month that I was a little bit confused at. So I will send that on to you all. I think the deadline for completion of that survey is in the next week or so I'll make sure you all get that. And then as far as I understand, or Ralph and Mary, correct me if you have a different understanding, is that group is going to otherwise meet quarterly, although I haven't heard anything about that.
They have not been communicating with me at all. They sent me one member in the group sent me an accidental email that indicated to me that there was a meeting happening that night.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me as well, so I will just keep you apprised if I hear anything from them. But otherwise, I will at least send you all the survey. I haven't looked at it, so I don't know what questions are there. Maybe there's.
I think I will reach out to Maria Rotondo, who is the person,
Right.
just tomorrow and send a message over to see what the heck is going on. We're not getting any communication, and then I'll share that through Heather or Lisa and get
perfect.
you that.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate that. All right, I think that's everything for me. Items, well, I'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Yeah, do we have any items from the board to follow up on?
We got this orientation packet, and it's quite outdated, the first 20 pages. Can we get that updated?
That's a great question. I think that's probably a question.
Yeah.
We can follow up with them. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have more specifics of like what? I haven't honestly looked at that for a while. I'd have to look
Well,
at
just
it.
a lot of charts of the job positions and how they flow together and contact information. I assume that a lot of that's changed since 2019.
Yeah.
It says Brian Bagby's the mayor.
All right. Thank you, Ethan, for bringing that to our attention.
Just like everything with a red pen.
I'll look to
That's it.
see if we have a more updated one available and distribute that.
Okay, yeah, and if not, we can at least let the clerk's office know. I did try to make sure at least what I was sending to you was the most updated version that I have, but clearly I have not looked at it for a while. So, oh,
Was there something else, Ethan?
Yeah. Making the public feel welcome is an important part of the democratic process. This board embraces diverse perspectives from the public. We say that we want to create an inclusive space where everyone feels welcome to share their opinion, but the board's process for public comment feels restricted and exclusive to members of the public, and I receive that feedback directly. Because unlike the city council, which allows open access to public comment, this board requires advanced registration for public comment for virtual meetings. Does not enable open access for public observation of those meetings, which could be perhaps construed as an Open Meetings Act violation. Accordingly, I would like the motion for this board to use the same rules as City Council, allowing open access and at least 3 minutes per speaker for residents of the city, well as opening up access to non-residents, maybe some ground experts or concerned visitors to the city, or users of city services.
I can put that on the agenda for a future meeting for folks to revisit, since we have new members of the board. I know we have some constraints because of the virtual meetings and why it's set up the way that it is. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, we don't have sufficient licensing for all of our meeting advisory boards to be streamed, live streamed meetings, and they chose to do the ones that typically have more public comment and engagement, to use that live stream account for that purpose. So, I mean, that creates a non-virtuous cycle where if they're not live streamed, then there's not going to be participants. You know what I'm saying? I have not found that this board has not had sufficient access to people who want to be included in the meeting. So we do put out the agenda several days in advance with the request that people contact me if they're interested in participating. I have not found that to be an issue of people who want to be included in the meeting who have not been able to gain access to that.
I've heard it a lot of times, that I've heard it from a lot of people, that the process is cumbersome. That they want to be able to just show up virtually to the meeting without having to register ahead of time, and that.
Unfortunately, the way our account works, we are not able to do that at this time. So one of the things that could happen is this board could decide to do all of their board meetings in person, which would open it up to the public to be able to come to every meeting.
So I would like to move that we consider that as well, because I live 4 blocks from here. I'm more than happy to come to all of the meetings in person. So unless 2 hours session that I'm staring at a computer. So I would like to move that we put that on the agenda just to discuss for now that we have a new board.
Second.
I have a question about that. I'm not sure who addressed it to, but I travel a lot for business, and I've been able to attend the virtual meetings from wherever I was. So as long as there's a quorum, what is the rule? I wouldn't want to have this impact. I think there's a lot of value to meeting in person, really. But how would it work? For instance, could I still attend virtually if it's an in-person meeting?
That is something that the board would have to vote on to put into their bylaws. Currently, we don't have space for that in our bylaws, but it is something that you all could do. I could tell you from the water board, because I'm the recording secretary for that board as well, they meet in person each month, but they have made it accessible if there's an extenuating circumstance for a board member that needs to attend remotely, that the board members are allowed to attend remotely, but everybody else would need to be in person, because it's much easier to logistically take care of all of that kind of stuff.
So in other words, the public couldn't call in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, so I made a motion, and someone wants to second it. Did someone second it?
Ethan did, yeah.
And I was just going to ask really quickly before you can vote or anything. We did just reevaluate our in-person and remote stuff.
Yeah.
At the beginning of
Tail
this year.
Yeah.
Might be helpful for the new members to be brought up to date on that as well.
May I revise your motion as hybrid?
Sure.
Am I understanding correctly when you say, so if we did move to a hybrid model, that does create the opportunity where the public can join virtually?
No,
It
the
does.
public would need to be in
They would have
person.
to come in person.
It's much easier logistically to run it if a board member needs to be remote. For example, if Ralph were traveling or Robert were traveling, I know he does that at times, or you're sick or something and you're not able to attend in person, that you would let me know. We could set it up for you to join virtually, but it's much easier to only have public access one way or the other, not both.
So it would be essentially the same system as city council.
Yes, I believe that. we have that.
Where if people are on vacation or sick and they don't want to be in person, but the public has to show up
Yes.
for the in-person for some meetings.
Yes.
So there is a precedent in the city.
And what's the hurdle to the public joining the meetings virtually, the live stream? What's the
Licensing.
specific?
We don't have the license for our account to be able to do the live streaming.
So it's
for this.
budgetary is the question.
Yeah.
And so that might be an advisory we can send to council to request
Yeah.
the budget to support that. Because what I'm thinking is that just thinking in the big picture of accessibility, and we actually just did this with City of Boulder, was that the virtual option for the public was the most appealing and accessible for members of the public, especially for meetings that are happening so closely with work hour. So that's what I'm wondering is if there's a longer arc here where we might be requesting the budget to make sure we have the license for folks to join virtually. I know that can also help facilities-wise too, is that there's a particularly hot topic that might be attracting
So
folks.
Daniel, so if we revise a second time and say, and let's add this to the discussion as well, okay.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering, because I think the hybrid
Michelle,
for
it's your job to
board
restate.
members.
I would think that would be a separate motion. I don't think that, I
Okay.
mean, the conversation is just to discuss the accessibility to it, so I don't think that it needs to be part of the motion that was already on the board as far as, you know.
Okay, so let's vote that and then Daniel can do that at the
Well,
same meeting we talk about that.
I mean, it could just be part of the discussion. It doesn't need to be a separate motion, in my opinion.
That it's a motion to discuss at the next meeting, the
Well,
accessibility for board and
So the motion on the table is to discuss the public accessibility piece of it.
Right.
That could be part of that conversation and doesn't need to be a separate topic that we
Okay.
can create.
We should review the motion.
Do you want to restate it?
Ethan,
We have it, that you're wanting to put it on the agenda.
I would like to
for-
put on the agenda that we have a group discussion towards changing our code bylaws in this way. Or our procedures, our standard operating procedures, towards greater public accessibility. And including a hybrid, well, we don't even have to add
Yeah,
what
we don't.
we're saying.
We-
It's just all part of the conversation, yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Any opposed?
This will be good. Don't blame me, Robert.
Any further discussion? Do you want to share anything on the
Oh, my thoughts were just, we talked about it before. I think we created this in person to try to drive more opportunities for the public to participate, and I don't know that it's been as successful as we hoped. But, I mean, I'm certainly, my vote no is not because I don't want public participation. It's just, I think we've tried a lot of avenues. I'm not sure we're going to find the right answer, but I'm eager for a vigorous discussion since the rest of the report's in.
And items from council.
One other quick question, how far back do the minutes go? Do you have archives of the minutes for this board that go back to the founding, or just curious
All
to
of
learn more about
the, all of the history of the minutes of this board are available, through the, public records portal, so you can access those through there. We did change the name from, this board changed their name in 2019, I think, to the Sustainability Advisory Board, and prior to that was a Board of Environmental Affairs, so you'll find them in those two categories on the, public portal for our records.
Can I, actually in regards to records too, so as an advisory board, we are not subject to Colorado Open Meetings Law, correct?
We are.
Yeah,
We are subject as an
We
advisory
got
board.
a legal
Awesome.
opinion
Yeah,
on
we are.
that this year, so
Perfect.
that's in question. I actually don't think we should be, because we are only in an advisory capacity. I looked at the regulations, but the city attorney's office said we are. I'm not
conservative.
sure that's correct, but
Got it.
we are.
Right, and then of course, all of our documentation is also core protected, right? Correct, so anything sent to our personal emails, that's also
If it is-
records we need to preserve.
If it is board related, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes, one of the recommendations that city council has made is, suggestion for board members to create a separate email address for board correspondence, that only that email stuff would be subject to the Cora law.
Yeah.
Instead of, having to sit through all your personal stuff as well.
And just a reminder for new folks, in case you didn't have a chance to look regarding Cora, that is very much, so if you all have correspondence you want to share with the entire board, that needs to come through Heather or I to send to folks as agency, because anytime it's more than 2 board members, it's considered.
You have a great switchboard operator.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Okay, is that the motion to adjourn? Yes. Does someone like to adjourn?
Did you make
Mary?
that?
Yep, motion to, I'm making the motion that we adjourn.
All those, in favor?
All right, thank you, everyone.